Imagine you're a security guard at a cash depot. One evening during a night shift, officials from the head office and the police arrive at your workplace to ask questions regarding suspicions of fraud and theft within the company. As soon as you open the doors, they draw their big guns, overpower everyone, and take control of the entire place. It's in that exact moment that everyone realized that this is a robbery. Now this scenario happened in 2014 at the SBV cash depot in Witbank. Now similarly, in Krugersdorp, a gang dug a tunnel into a Standard Bank vault, stole millions and got away with it. Now in this episode, we'll be looking at those two cases and the rising trend of the cash in transit robberies in the country. Violent crimes are a long-standing South African tradition, and at the top of the hierarchy are the gangsters who commit bank robberies and target the cash in transit vehicles. Now these operations are highly organized with military precision, planned over many months, and it involves a number of specialists. Now these crews can range from 15 to 30 men depending on the size of the score. Now these individuals have graduated from the school of crime and have mastered their craft over the years. This is a democratic crime. In most cases, there's no leader calling the shots. Everybody plays their part according to their specialization, and this makes everyone involved equally invested. And these are not your neighborhood gangs. These are guys who've come together because of the unique skills they each bring to the table. And we've seen reports in the past where the cash in transit robbery crews include individuals with military training from the SNDF, some from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, even police officers in these crews. Now this is a crime of greed, not a crime of need, because these are people who send their kids to the best schools, they invest in properties, clubs, taxis, and so on. But one thing about these individuals is clear: they are dangerous and hardened criminals. We've seen how vicious these gangs can be, from the horrors of the 2006 Villanora heist, in which 4 security guards were burned alive in their armored vehicle after a ferocious fight back against highly trained missionaries. Now to the 2014 robbery of a cash depot in Witbank, where a gang made off with almost 105 million rands after impersonating police officers. At the time, this was the biggest score in South Africa by one crew at one time. The audacious heist was carried out in April of 2014 when a group of armed robbers arrived at the SBV depot in Witbank and introduced themselves as employees from the head office, as well as police officers who wanted to question staff at the depot. As soon as the premises were opened, they overpowered everyone and took over the building. Security tried to resist, but the robbers already had the upper hand. They tied them up and took them to some bushes a distance from the depot to torture them, while the rest of the gang broke into the vault and used industrial drills to break into the safe and extract the cash. It took them the whole night drilling through the vault. They even had to kidnap the morning shift security crew because they were not done yet. The investigating officer was part of the gang and one of the first responders to the crime scene. He was former captain in the Hawks, Begane Welcome Kabashe. And the gang also had an inside person who gave them the blueprint and all the security information needed. However, there was a problem. There was one hidden camera that the inside person didn't know about, and that was the one that captured the whole footage. Now the cops who were investigating the case at the time, after seeing the footage, realizing who was behind the crime, they asked for a 40 million rands bribe that was paid to them, and Captain Kabashe helped facilitate the transactions. But that didn't help because some of the suspects ended up cooperating with the police and flipped on the crew, including the inside person. You see, some people will commit a crime because of greed, but they don't have the heart to do the time. So the two that flipped spilled the beans on everyone, and the police officers who were involved were arrested along with the gang. Then a new investigating team had to be put in place. Something to keep in mind about these gangs is that they always use the best lawyers that money can buy. So mostly they don't get convicted, it's only arrests. the country doesn't have a high conviction rate of these type of robbers. Outside of the big lawyers that they use, they also bribe police officers, even prosecutors, and it's known that they will spend a lot of money to get away with it. But in this case, the prosecuting team was very strong, and the investigating officers who were later put in place were doing their job properly. And there was even rumors that the lead investigating officer was offered millions to mess up the case, but he never took the bribe. On the 9th of Feb in 2018, the 13 robbers were sentenced to 20 years in prison each. They were convicted of conspiracy to murder, robbery with aggravating circumstances, kidnapping, attempted murder, and malicious damage to property. In most cases, the cash that is stolen is never recovered. Even if the suspects are arrested, the money is rarely returned. You know, of all the money stolen from CIT robberies, maybe less than 10% is ever recovered. And if the money is found, the police often take some of it without reporting the full amount. Now, there was a case where 30 million rands was recovered from a robbery, but half of it was stolen from the police evidence room and nobody was arrested. In 1977, during the Easter weekend, the Standard Bank in Krugersdorp was robbed in one of the most daring robberies in the history of South Africa. Now, the robbers dug a tunnel from a shop to the bank's vault, and more than 400,000 was taken, the equivalent of around 20 million rands in today's money. And that's not it. It's been said that these guys stole uncut diamonds worth $950 million, which were kept in the vault. And to this day, this case remains unsolved. No suspects and no arrests have been made. The robbers rented a shop about 4 shops away from the bank, using a false name and an address in Johannesburg. Now, the empty shop where the tunnel started was rented by Mr. Nightingale. He claimed to use the shop as a photo studio. Now, the shop's windows were covered with newspapers, giving the appearance of ongoing renovations to prepare for its grand opening. The crew did their homework very well, because at the time there was a lot of construction work happening in the area, so they knew compressors were being used nearby, enabling them to mask any sounds during the excavation process. In fact, the bank turned off its trembler alarms for that very reason. The alarms would have been triggered by the ground shaking from the construction work, and that gave the gang an advantage. A 35-meter long tunnel was dug from the shop, passing through 4 other shops to reach the bank, and the soil from the tunnel was emptied into 20 kg bags and stored in a walk-in storeroom at the back of the premises. Now, the work was carried out at night, and fortunately for them, the grounds were relatively soft and there were no underground cables or pipes along the route. The gang had installed wooden poles to stabilize the tunnel and prevent it from collapsing. It took them around 3 months to complete. Now, once inside the bank, the robbers broke a hole into a brick wall and opened the safe. And during the investigation, evidence suggests that food was prepared inside the safe. I guess the guys had a lot of time. It was the Easter weekend after all, so the robbers had a lot of time to cover their tracks before the bank opened on Tuesday. That's when everybody realized that the vault had been hit. But by that time, it's rumored that the crew had already skipped the country. You know, I believe this was an inside job. With the amount stolen along with the diamonds, there's no way security could have been lacking like that. And I believe that bank officials and some police officials were colluding with the gang to get this job done. What attracts criminals to these jobs is the fact that they are relatively easy as long as they have the right information, and the wealth they can accumulate from one good score can change a life. And it's been said in the past that these guys They don't see this crime as a crime against anyone specifically because they see it as they are stealing from businesses that probably have insurance. Now these days, CIT robberies happen so frequently that people are not scared anymore. We are desensitized to these type of crimes. That's why you see people taking videos, and some even go to the scene to pick up the scattered cash while contaminating the crime scene in the process.